Howdy folks, hope you're enjoying your weekend, and we're having a bit of a break with tradition today, mostly because I like to keep you guessing. It's not Ghost Recon, it's the return of Atlantic Fleet. A fair old number of you have been requesting that I give this game another playthrough, and I thought, well, the last time that I played I was attempting to escape from King George V, Rodney, Dorsetshire and Norfolk in the Bismarck, and it didn't quite go according to plan. You see, the plan that I had the first time I did this was, well, the Bismarck's a fast battleship. Only the Norfolk and the Dorsetshire are going to be able to catch me, so if I was to pull a U-turn and haul ass, while concentrating fire on the cruisers, I'd be able to escape from the two battleships. That was the plan. Sounded good to me in theory, in practice, not so much. You see, the problem with the plan was that cruisers like the Norfolk and the Dorsetshire, armed with 6-inch guns, they can't really sink a battleship like the Bismarck. They can render it combat ineffective by knocking out its fire directors, radar, secondaries, setting fire on the upper deck and so on, but they can't really sink it. The 14-inch guns on the King George V and the 16-inch guns on the Rodney, on the other hand, they can sink the Bismarck. And while you're opening up the distance on the two battleships and wasting your time shooting up the cruisers that can't really sink you, those two battleships are hitting your rear quarter and doing damage to your propulsion system, as well as your fire directors and your rear turrets. So suddenly you're not fast enough to escape from them anymore, and half of your firepower's gone, because the back end of your ship's been hammered by 14 and 16-inch gunfire. So this time around, I'm approaching it completely differently. I'm here in the Bismarck, and I'm going to go straight for those two battleships and pretty much just ignore the two cruisers. Between the King George V and the Rodney, it's the Rodney who has the bigger, scarier guns. The Rodney is armed with a whole bunch of 16-inch guns. And it doesn't have as many guns as King George V, but the King George V's guns are only 14-inch, so I can take more of a battering from the King George V than I can afford to take from the Rodney, so the Rodney's my priority target. My fire directors are estimating the range of the targets and giving me an estimated elevation for the guns. Shots out. Yeah, not bad. Reasonably close. Here comes King George. Twin forward 14-inch gun batteries, and he's gone long. And now it's the Rodney's turn. Substantially bigger guns. 3 turrets on the Rodney, Nelson class battleship. Very unusual turret arrangement on the Nelson class, like the Rodney. 3 16-inch gun turrets, all 3 of them at the front, but only the front 2 turrets were super firing. So the third turret was actually behind and kind of below the middle turret, which meant that despite the fact that all 3 turrets were at the front, if you were actually chasing a target, you could only shoot at them with the front 2 turrets, and that's something I'm going to be counting on here. Well, we're going to continue the turn to get those rear gun turrets firing. There we go. And the fire directors are saying I should elevate, or drop the elevation to 11.4 degrees. I'm at 12.4 at the moment. Alright, I'm gonna trust the estimation from the fire director this time around. Shots out, still only got the front 2 turrets. And nope, they're still falling short. In fact, it looks like they were falling a bit shorter than the first time I fired. King George V is firing, and he's falling short again. Okay. Well, that's good news. Now the Rodney's turn. Fingers crossed. And he's gone long. So these guys are bracketing me. And I don't really care what the Norfolk and the Dorsetshire are doing, because they're only really going to be a threat to me if they get close enough to fire torpedoes. So, well, the Dorsetshire certainly the most accurate ship so far. I just got bracketed there, but again, I don't really care if I get hit by 6-inch shells. Even plunging fire isn't going to penetrate my armoured deck. Might do some damage to my fire directors, however, and that could give me problems against King George V and Rodney. Right, my turn. Let's continue the turn. Is that going to be enough of a turn to get the rear turrets firing? Nope. Doesn't seem like it. Well, the fire directors are estimating 11.5 degrees, but I'm going to go with 11.4. And first blood to the Bismarck. I think 11.5 might have been actually slightly better, but I've scored hits, so good stuff. I've got the range now, and I've just been bracketed by King George V. It's Previous salvo fell short. That one went long, so that's not good news. Rodney's falling short again. Okay, so I've taken no damage. And I've managed to score some hits on the Rodney. Dorsetshire so far has been and continues to be the most accurate of the ships shooting at me. The Norfolk is way too far away to be able to get any kind of effective shots on me. These are, look at the range on that. Yeah, they missed by a mile. Right, my turn again. Well, I still need to get these rear turrets into action, so we'll continue the turn to starboard. Hope that'll be enough. Ah, crap, it isn't. Okay, 402 gun batteries it is. I'm going to trust the fire director this time around. They've had enough time to get an accurate plot. Shots out. Hits scored. And I think we've set a fire midships on the Rodney. King George V firing. The range is getting awfully close, but he's overshot again. Although maybe, possibly, I took a hit in the superstructure. I'm not entirely sure. Although that smoke could have just been coming from the funnel. Rodney's missed again. Cruisers firing ineffectually. Although the Dorsetshire has been remarkably accurate so far, considering the range. Yep, and again, I'm getting straddled. But unlike World of Warships, for example, where a cruiser on with 6 or 8 inch guns can sink a battleship, providing the battleship gets unlucky and doesn't score any hits on you, it takes a lot more than an 8-inch shell to take out a battleship like the Bismarck. Well, the Norfolk actually managed to score a hit. Well done, HMS Norfolk. Right, now it's my turn. And the Rodney is burning quite nicely. Okay, let's get these 2 rear turrets pointed at the... Bloody hell. Still? Really? Alright, 2 forward turrets it is. Have some of this. Oh, for you, Tommy, the war is over. What's King George V doing? If they're not careful, those 2 ships are going to collide. She's missed again. Well, I can keep this up all day. Okay, Rodney's turning away. They've obviously seen the danger of collision. Rodney's missed again. Dorsetshire having another go. I feel like the Dorsetshire deserves to hit me. Even though it's not going to cause me any problems. Wow. Somebody needs to sack their fire directors. Come on, Norfolk. You're the furthest one away and you're the only one that's managed to score a hit so far. But, well, no, not this time. Right, can I finally get these 2 aft turrets firing at the Rodney before these guys start doing some serious damage to me? No messing around, let's get these guns bearing on the target. Right, now we have all 8 15-inch guns firing. Cross your fingers. Oh, baby. I think we've taken out a turret, and King George V is continuing the turn. They're going to run into the Rodney if they're not careful. Well, it wouldn't be the first time the Royal Navy had managed to run a couple of battleships into each other. And yes, that's only 1 turret firing, which is just as well, because that's the first time I've taken a major caliber hit, and I think it went into the funnel. So the Rodney has had a number 2 turret disabled. Now, the number 3 turret's fine, but, well, the number 2 turret's in the way, so the Rodney's going to have to turn if it wants to get that 3rd turret firing at me. At the moment, Rodney is only able to engage me with 3 of her 16-inch guns. So, we've got ourselves a contest. Oh, Norfolk, really? Well, actually, I keep threatening to explain why you shouldn't discount the amount of damage that cruisers, even if they're only on with 6-inch guns, can do to a battleship. And once I've fired this next salvo at the Rodney, actually, let's just have a look. I haven't taken any damage at all, so that shot through the funnel didn't actually hit anything significant. Rodney, on the other hand, yep, A turret is out, propulsion is damaged, and anti-aircraft guns, meh, don't really care. But look at the course that King George V is steering there. That could be amusing. Anyway, let's get some more shots into the Rodney. Oh yes, that's more like it. I think only 2 of those missed, and that is... surely that's going to be a collision. Oh, and I've finally taken what looks like... those could have been some underwater hits below the waterline from King George. Oh shit. Okay, that isn't good. The Rodney might be down, but she is definitely not out. What kind of damage did I take there? It looked kind of nasty, and I am burning. Dorsetshire missed again. Norfolk's having a go. Anyway, cruisers with 6-inch guns, or even 8-inch guns, and destroyers with 5-inch guns firing at battleships. Waste the time or not? Well, you're never going to penetrate anything important on a battleship if you're firing at it with guns of that kind of caliber. Oh, just my port secondaries and my anti-aircraft guns are out. Although the fire is still burning and that could continue to spread and cause more damage. Going to continue firing at the Rodney. She's hurt and she's still shooting back at me. But yes, cruiser and destroyer caliber guns. Just because they're never going to... oh shit. Well, that looked kind of impressive. What kind of damage did that cause? Oh, King George V going hard astern and scoring a hit amidships, but it doesn't look significant. Rodney having another go and scored a hit near one of the rear gun turrets, but again it looks like I pretty much got away with it. November the 14th, 1942. Battleship night action during the campaign for Guadalcanal in the Southern Pacific. America had 2 battleships, South Dakota class, the South Dakota and the Washington, escorted by just 4 destroyers. On the Japanese side was the fast battleship Kirishima, the heavy cruisers Takao and Atago, the light cruisers Sendai and Nagara, and the grand total of, I think, 8 or 10 destroyers. The Rodney's still shooting at me, and I still haven't taken any significant damage, just my port secondaries. So we're going to attempt to finish the Rodney off, and maybe, if we keep on this course, put the Rodney between myself and King George V. Fire directors have got a good firing solution now, all 8 guns. Oh! I think that's knocked out another turret. And a couple of hits from King George V's 14-inch guns, and there is a fire, but the Rodney's guns are out! Oh, well, that's good news. Anyway, back to the 1942 night action during the Guadalcanal campaign in the South Pacific. The Americans had the advantage of radar. It was a night battle, so they got to fire the first shots, but the American destroyers suffered pretty heavily once the Japanese got over their initial shock. The USS Washington barely took a single hit during the course of the entire battle, but the USS South Dakota, forced to make an emergency turn in order to avoid a collision, found herself illuminated by all the burning Japanese ships that had been knocked out in the initial salvos. And I'm going to continue firing at the Rodney here rather than switching fire to King George. More hits, more damage, more fires. King George pulling an emergency turn, never managed to get those rear turrets firing and has missed. So, Japanese light cruisers, heavy cruisers and destroyers, all firing at the USS South Dakota, a South Dakota class battleship. They never at any point inflicted any damage that put the South Dakota in any danger whatsoever of sinking, but they rendered that ship 100% combat ineffective by the volume of medium caliber fire and small caliber fire that they put into the South Dakota's superstructure. They knocked out secondary guns, they knocked out all of her fire directors, they blew her radar up. She didn't dare fire her guns because she had no idea what she was going to be shooting at. Oh, wow. Another huge explosion on the Rodney. And King George V is starting to register some hits on the main armour belt, possibly some underwater penetrations there. And then again, possibly not, because, well, battleships tended to be designed to withstand hits from their own main battery, and the Bismarck's main battery is 15-inch, and King George V's is only 14-inch. But then again, at these kind of ranges, she probably does have the penetration to punch through the main armour belt. Cruiser's shooting at me again. And despite what happened to the USS South Dakota, it was only in trouble because it kept getting hit. And so far the Norfolk and the Dorsetshire have, well, they're just not putting enough effective fire into me for them to actually cause me any problems. With the Rodney practically dead in the water and her guns out of action, I'm going to switch fire to King George V now. So obviously fire directors are having to plot a firing solution on a new target here, so it's not going to be quite as accurate, but then again the range is fairly short, so that didn't miss by much. And again King George V scores some hits, but it's high in the superstructure, so unlikely to be critical damage. Dorsetshire, 10 out of 10 for persistence. 2 out of 10 for accuracy and effectiveness, however. Norfolk's going to have another go. I think the Norfolk was the first one to actually score a hit on me so far. And then again, I don't think she's actually managed to score another hit since then. Oh, there we go. Me and my big mouth. Norfolk scored another hit, but 6-inch gun. It's never going to penetrate my armoured deck. Right then, Georgie boy. Chew on these 15-inch babies. All 8 of them, just for you. Range is good. Elevation is good. Yeah, let's see what this does. Oh, yeah, not bad. She's still moving, she's still returning fire, and that looked a little bit more effective. Again, some of those near misses could have actually been underwater hits. Rodney all but dead in the water. Guns not firing. It's possible that Rodney's third turret is actually operational, but with a propulsion out she can't turn the ship around and get that turret pointing at me. Norfolk, game for another go. And actually scores more hits. Norfolk could actually be doing... Yep, my aft fire director and aft radar is out. That's what happens. That's what cruisers can do to battleships. Well, no chance of actually sinking me, but they can reduce my combat effectiveness. We're going to continue putting fire into King George, since Rodney at the moment is not effective. Shots out. Oh, that looked kind of nasty. Gun turrets seem to be okay, but... Yep, still firing. But again, only with the 2 forward turrets, was forced to turn to starboard to avoid colliding with the Rodney. And the Rodney is starting to develop a nasty list to port. She's obviously taken on water. Dorsetshire's starting to score hits. Again, this could be causing me problems with my fire directors and my radars, which is going to make my firing less accurate. Norfolk having another go. And despite the range, okay, those ones missed by a country mile, but the Norfolk's fire has actually been surprisingly accurate. Well, since the Rodney is still not shooting at me, I'm going to continue to pour fire into King George. I do have the advantage here, of course. I've got larger caliber guns and I've got more of them pointing at him. Oh, those ones... Well, yeah... I'm not entirely sure about that. Obviously... Ooh, ow. Yeah, that looked painful. Scored some hits, but they seemed a bit high in the superstructure. So I'm not entirely sure how much effective damage that was. But then again, I could have knocked his fire directors out. That would explain his relative inaccuracy for the range he's firing at. I guess we're just going to have to wait and see. But they're both burning nicely. You can see the columns of smoke over there. Norfolk, once again, actually scoring hits. Good girl. Right. King George is the only immediate threat at the moment, so that's the target I'm going to continue firing on. Have some of this. Oh, holy shit. Is that... That looked serious. That looked very serious. The ship seemed to heel over to the side there, as if it suddenly took on a shit ton of water. She's still burning, and I'm not. Lost the target. At this point, I hadn't actually realised that I'd sunk King George V. I'm looking at her over there and I'm thinking, is that a graphics bug? I completely missed the message, King George V sinking. So I'm going to put another salvo into a sinking battleship without realising that it's a complete waste of time. And it's only now, look at that. And I thought, oh shit, she's down. That just came out of nowhere. That was great news. So the King George V is sunk. The Rodney is combat ineffective. Well, not 100% combat ineffective, because the Rodney had a nasty surprise for me. Something that I'd completely forgotten about. And should have thought about, because the Rodney actually did this during the actual encounter with the Bismarck. What are you talking about, Jingles? Just wait and you'll see. So there goes King George V. That came as a big surprise. I don't know what it was I hit, but it seemed to do the trick. Now, the Rodney, all 3 gun turrets are out. But her torpedoes are not. And I'd completely forgotten that the Rodney was armed with torpedoes. And of course the Rodney had the distinction of being the only battleship to ever hit another battleship, the Bismarck, with a torpedo. Once the Bismarck's guns had been knocked out, the Rodney closed in and fired torpedoes at her. And I completely forgot about that. But I'm going to continue putting fire into her in an attempt to sink the old girl. Obviously going to have to switch targets now, and the fire directors are going to have to recompute the elevation. But, well, the range is pretty good, so I should be reasonably accurate. Oh yeah. Oh, and there's an explosion and shit. Oh shit. There are the torpedoes. Now she's only firing 2 of them. But that's 2 hits I could do without. So, first thing I'm going to have to do is start taking evasive action, because it would be really embarrassing to get torpedoed by another battleship. I mean, it happened to the Bismarck, but she was stationary and she had no guns left. I am not stationary, and all of my guns still work. And the Norfolk's scoring more hits, but it's definitely a case of too little, too late. Okay, so I don't want to run into those torpedoes, so I'm going to drop down from flank to full speed, and we're going to pull a hard turn to starboard. Now this should allow me to continue firing at the Rodney and hopefully sink her before I have to turn and engage those cruisers, because I can't run away from the cruisers. Ah crap, I missed. And here they come. You see, my original plan, the first time I played this battle, was to attempt to kill the cruisers and then run away from the battleships. Because the cruisers are the only things that have the speed to catch me. The Bismarck was a fast battleship. By dealing with the battleships first, I have to fight the cruisers, because they are starting to get very, very effective with their 6-inch guns. So regardless of what happens with the Rodney, I'm going to have to turn around and fight the Norfolk and the Dorsetshire. But once the Rodney's down, the Norfolk and the Dorsetshire stand no chance. Unless they get close enough to fire torpedoes at me, they are going to die. Oh, and I can still fire all 4 guns at the Rodney. Well, that's bad news for her. Let's have a look at the elevation. Yeah. Shots out. More hits. Oh, that was a serious explosion. She's completely dead in the water. You can see she's flooding. Have I managed to avoid these torpedoes? Oh, the Rodney's firing. Those are her secondary gun batteries. Of course, the secondaries on the Rodney, a lot like the Izumo and all the warships, they're mostly clustered around midships and the aft end of the ship. And she's only now able to get her secondaries firing now that I'm actually close enough for them to engage. But the main gun turrets are out. So I don't have to worry about any 16-inch gunfire. King George V is dead. I don't have to worry about any 14-inch gunfire. It's just 5 and 6-inch guns. And you can't sink me with 5 and 6-inch guns. Got to keep turning, of course. I don't want to run into the Rodney's torpedoes, which means I can only fire my rear turrets, and the fire director and radar for them are out. So I may very well miss. Shots out. Oh, I didn't miss. Rodney is sinking. Yeah. What can I say? And now the Dorsetshire and the Norfolk must be shitting bricks. Because there is no way, unless they get close enough to fire torpedoes, there is no way these two cruisers can sink me. They can set fires on the upper deck, they can knock out secondary gun turrets, they can knock out my radar and my fire directors, but they're never going to sink me. It might mean that it takes me longer than you might expect to actually put them down, but unless they turn away and start running, they're going down. I just must make sure I don't get hit by the Rodney's torpedoes, however, because that would be very embarrassing. Right then, HMS Norfolk. Put up a good fight, but it's time to say goodbye. Yep, it scored with one of the guns, I think, and yep, I've avoided the torpedoes. So that was the Rodney's last chance. Dorsetshire having a go. Nope. Norfolk's turn. I think the Norfolk is trying to close in and get the torpedoes away. And that's never going to hurt. And now it's my turn. For you, Tommy, the war is over. You can appreciate what it must have been like for the British cruiser squadron at the Battle of the River Plate when the Graf Spee was unloaded. Oh, holy shit, that looked really painful. What kind of damage did the Norfolk sustain? Dorsetshire turning to port and scoring some hits. Might have knocked out a fire director. The Norfolk's burning midships, firing with the forward turrets. Yeah, possibly an underwater hit, but it's on the main armour belt, so no damage. Can we finish her off with this salvo? Elevation, I have to lower it. Shots out. Well, that looks good. And the Norfolk is sinking. So, HMS Dorsetshire. Do you feel lucky, punk? The thing is, I'm not quite fast enough to run away from the cruisers, but the cruisers aren't quite fast enough to run away from me either. And now it's just me and the Dorsetshire. So the captain of that ship must be shitting bricks, and I can get all 4 of my gun turrets turning to point at that cruiser. Shots out. Can we get a first salvo hit? I think. Holy shit! Wow! That ship just exploded. That's a magazine detonation if ever I saw one. And that's it. We've done it. We've rewritten history. The Bismarck survives and lives to run away and fight another day. Chew on that one, Churchill, you big fat baldy cigar smoking bastard. Where's your home fleet now? Oh, that was fun. And I hope you guys enjoyed it too. I've enjoyed rewriting history today in the Bismarck. And that's it for Casual Saturday. Hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend. I hope you enjoyed today's video. And as always, take care. And I'll catch you next time.